Why is there a fire happening right now?
There are multiple fires that are taking place.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Yeah.
In the news, though, you're supposed to know.
Well, I don't know how it started. We don't know how it started. There,
I think
winds.
it's all the gay people in L.A.
Okay, there we go.
Okay.
We got the...
Unacceptable.
Unacceptable. That's California. That was Fox Channel 11 doing a live shot in Los Angeles. And a man, I believe he's an Asian American man, said he tried to blame the fires on gays. Is that what he did? You know, California, very bigoted group of people, those Californians. Well, a good and happy Friday to you, and welcome back once again. We are reachable at 888-630-9625. There is a petition that has been put together now calling for the resignation of Karen Bass from her job as mayor of Los Angeles, California. Should probably put one together for Gavin Newsom, too. He should also resign. The mismanagement of California has been an ongoing calamity for quite some time now. The mismanagement of forests, the mismanagement of water resources. I lived in Santa Barbara, California many years ago. I lived there for 7 years, and I, in the 1980s, was complaining, why aren't you guys desalinating water out of the mighty Pacific Ocean? It's right there. And you keep complaining you don't have enough water when you're sitting on the edge of the largest ocean on the planet Earth. Maybe you should start sucking some of that water out of the ocean. You desalinate that water. You pump it into reservoirs, and then you got all the water in the world. See how this works? I've been on many Navy ships, U.S. Navy ships, that suck seawater out of the ocean, and they desalinate and purify the water. Like, for example, I spent a few days on the Los Angeles-class fast attack submarine, the USS Montpelier. I believe it's SSN 765. Fortune favors the bold, and that's their slogan, their motto. And they, on American submarines and aircraft carriers, spent time on multiple aircraft carriers, and they take the water out of the ocean, they purify it, they desalinate it, and then it is your drinking water, your showering water, and also, if they had to, in a pinch, they could spray it on if Democrats fling cigarettes around and started a fire, you can put fires out with it too. But in California, they haven't figured that out yet. In Israel, they suck water out of the Mediterranean Sea. They desalinate the water, and the water is put to all kinds of good uses, growing crops in the desert. The Israelis invented the drip system because they live in the desert, and that drip system where you got like a plastic tube with pinholes in it every 6 inches or every foot, and you run water through it, and it drips, and you can water your crops in the desert and your flowers in Virginia as well with the drip system invented in Israel. And we've got, the patriarchy, bless the patriarchy. The patriarchy has invented all kinds of remarkable things like water desalination and, nuclear power, all kinds of good stuff. And the Democrats, they're against all common sense technology. And they think there are 142 genders. There's a lot wrong with these people. A lot. Boy, oh boy. Now, yesterday, let's go to soundbite number 1, Michael, because the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, we played an abbreviated version of this soundbite yesterday on the radio show. And last night on my television show on the Newsmax channel, on Newsmax, you should be watching Newsmax, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, Chris Plant, The Right Squad. And it is a panel discussion show. And we have fun. Most of us are a lot of fun on the show. It's great stuff. But we played this longer version of the soundbite last night on my television show, and I want to share this with you. Also, we have news going on other than all of this stuff. It turns out that the Donald Trump sentencing in his, they call it the hush money case. What it is, every news organization in the country is familiar with this non-disclosure agreement. And Judge Juan Merchan, who is a radical left-wing extremist, insisted on having sentencing of President Trump today on January 10th of 2025. The inauguration is January 20th of 2025. And President Trump, the sentencing set for 9:30 a.m. today. And we just got word Trump sentenced to unconditional discharge. No prison, no probation, and no conditions, whatever that means. Now, that's as convoluted as it gets, I suppose. Sentence him to an unconditional discharge. So he's discharged, and the language is a little bit creepy, I've got to say. But these people, there's a lot wrong with them. So the Democrats get what they want. He remains a convicted felon, you see. And that's it. That's what they got. But faces no other punishment. There is no punishment. But the judge, who's a Democrat Party activist, a Democrat Party hack, a left-wing extremist who abuses his power, Judge Juan Merchan, and Judge Juan Merchan has carried out his little coup, his insurrection. This is his revolt against established authority. The President of the United States, the President-elect of the United States, and the former President of the United States, Donald John Trump. And President Trump will be labeled by the media and the Democrats, but I repeat myself, a convicted felon going to the White House. You know, Joe Biden's family took in, $20-something million. And his son, who ought to be a convicted felon 500 times over for violating the FARA Act, the Foreign Agents Registration Act, and for sucking up millions of dollars from communist China, from Putin's communist Russia. Putin is a communist. Barack Obama's CIA director, John Brennan, a communist. I don't know what you call somebody who votes for the Communist Party candidate for President of the United States. If you don't call him a communist, what do you call him? You know, I vote for the Republican candidate, and you can call me a Republican, right? I'm a Republican voter, and I'm a conservative, and I vote Republican. And then there's the CIA director under Barack Obama and Joe Biden, who voted for the Communist Party candidate. So I think you call him a communist, right? Isn't that right? The Democrats love communists. Just amazing stuff. So we've got this, and it just popped right now, the unconditional discharge. And there is no jail, there is no fine, there is no probation, there are no conditions, but they just want what they want, so they abuse the power until they get what they want. You can call him a convicted felon. And the Democrats, and that includes George Stephanopoulos and the long list of Jake Tapper and the rest of them, will all call him a convicted felon because a Democrat Party activist who was given a job as a judge in New York has abused his power now to give the Democrat Party what it wanted, because that's what they do. Power is something to be abused by Democrats, to be sure. So he is an unconditional discharge is a strange turn of phrase, I think. But he remains a convicted felon. That's all the Democrats care about. Faces no other penalties at all, but they don't care. They just care that they got, now they would prefer, of course, firing on Fort Sumter again. But this is what they get. So, And we'll have more for you on that as it develops. The Democrats will doubtless come out and start throwing Molotov cocktails at the Capitol or doing the kind, maybe they'd go loot something. You know, they love looting. They're looting the fire zone in California. These people, can I say? All right, and I was just starting to go to the radical left-wing extremist Democrat, Mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, who had headed off to Ghana to attend the inauguration of the incoming Ghanaian president, who, as you might imagine, is not a conservative constitutional American. You know, the incoming president of Ghana, who has the first name John, which is a little too colonial for me. I think he should lose the colonial thing. Dramani, that's his second name, John Dramani Mahama. So I just like Dramani Mahama because it's better than John. How boring is that? Come on, he's an African Ghanaian president, John Dramani Mahama. And she went to Africa to be present for and participate in his inauguration in Ghana. And then all hell broke loose in Los Angeles, California, the greater metropolitan metroplex. And she came home. I heard this morning she came home on a U.S. military flight. She's the mayor of Los Angeles. And she shouldn't have left in the first place. She had already been warned before she got on a plane to fly the 7,400 miles to Ghana. She had already gotten word that with the conditions, the climate conditions in Los Angeles and Southern California, that the outbreak of a fire and ripping Santa Ana winds could lead to a real calamity there. But she went anyway. And when she came home, a reporter with Sky News by the name of David Blevins somehow made his way into the jetway, where you get off the plane and walk into the terminal. And she was there, and she had no escape. He wasn't trapping her. There was just no way out of there. And he tried to get her to respond to any, hey, you think you're doing a good job? Do you owe the people of Los Angeles an apology? Should you have cut the budget for the fire department? And she answered nothing.
Do you owe citizens an apology for being absent while their homes were burning? Do you regret cutting the fire department budget by millions of dollars, Madam Mayor?
She's looking around. She doesn't have
nothing to say today?
Nothing to say.
Have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today?
Citizens? Who cares about them?
Elon Musk says that you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position?
Elon Musk. No.
Madam Mayor, have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today who are dealing with this disaster?
Absolutely nothing.
No apology for them?
She's Nero.
Do you think you should have been visiting Ghana while this was unfolding back home?
Nero fiddled as Rome burned. And now Karen Bass is the Nero of Los Angeles, California. She won't even fiddle. She's not even motivated enough to fiddle. These people. Can I just say, what's the matter you?
Madam Mayor, let me ask you just again, have you anything to say to the citizens today as you return?
What's it? She's got a horse holder saying, no.
Madam Mayor, just a few words for the citizens today as you return to deal with the catastrophe.
Nothing for them. Nothing for you. Now the headline this morning, as wildfires rage in Los Angeles, Speaker of California's Assembly, Robert Rivas, would not answer my questions. So once again, another Democrat. They don't feel that they're accountable to the American people at all. So it's Ashley Zavala reporting that as wildfires raged in Los Angeles, Speaker of California Assembly Robert Rivas would not answer my questions. If now is the right time to have a special session to legally fight Donald Trump. That's what the Democrats in the California Capitol did yesterday. They called in a special session of the Assembly, and they authorized $25 million to combat Donald Trump. Not fires in Los Angeles, not water shortages, not fire department shortages, but to fight Donald Trump. Both the California Senate and Assembly gavelled into session the Trump-related special session yesterday. And they don't want to talk about their failings. These people voted to hollow out California's ability to fight natural disasters and fires, but they waved in gang members by the thousands from Latin American countries because they're not on our side. Aren't they amazing? 888-630-9625. Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris. Okay. A great deal more to get to, including the alleged sentencing of President Trump by the Democrats, because the left is here. Lavrenti Beria and the KGB are loose in the United States, and the Democrat Party runs them. But right now, let's go to the telephones. Let's go to George, calling from Chicago, Illinois, listening on the great WLS. Jorge, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
What's going on, Chris?
Not a lot, George. What do you say?
I understand this whole thing, the fire happening in California, but I just don't like how the Republicans always try to politicize everything and anything that happens at a blue state or city. Mm-hmm. That mayor, she's an idiot. Absolutely, 100% spot on. She should be thrown out of that office immediately. But the fact that you people immediately politicize this is just absurd. No one called out the governors of North Carolina, Florida, and hurricane season. It's called a season because it happens yearly, yet they were not prepared. This fire in California, in L.A. County, do you know the last time it happened? 5 years ago. You know the time before that? 8 years ago. So this has happened twice in 20-plus years.
Oh, that'd be 10 years. That'd be twice. And you said 5 years ago and 8 years ago. 5 years ago and 8 years ago would be in the last 10 years. But not to get all chronological on you. But now, listen.
No, I said 5 years, and before that was 8 years, before the 5 years.
That's okay.
Total, 2 times in 20 years. So you're telling me a city should put a lot of money into something that's happened twice in 20 years?
Well, first of all, it's a state
unprecedented.
First of all,
unprecedented.
This is unprecedented, and that's one of the things that's being talked about, George. Why is this unprecedented level of fire happening? Is it because when the firefighters who had their budget cut by more than $17 million by Karen Bass, why the firefighters show up with their fire trucks and attach hoses to fire hydrants and no water comes out? That is the stuff of third world hellholes. I'd expect that in Haiti, but not in Los Angeles.
That's another disinformation. That's disinformation. That is totally. I have 3 friends who are firemen from Chicago that moved to Los Angeles and are currently fighting the fires. That's 100% a lie. I spoke to them.
Okay. All right. Well, we have, listen, George, I've played audio of firefighters in Los Angeles, not your friends who used to be in Chicago, who are standing there watching city blocks burn, saying there's no water coming out of the hydrants. Now, President Trump had appealed to the United States Supreme Court before today's sentencing by the Democrat radicals and Judge Juan Merchan in New York, abusing the hell out of their power for political purposes on behalf of the Democrat Party. But the hearing took place this morning. President Trump in Florida at Mar-a-Lago with basically a Zoom call, right, streaming back and forth with the crooked judge. And the crooked judge said, well, there will be no further punishment, but the conviction will stand with no additional punishment because they've got him now. He's a convicted felon. And what is the penalty for the terrible crime that he committed? And that is entering a non-disclosure agreement with a woman, which every network has done repeatedly. Every television network has done repeatedly. But pay no attention to that. Now, President Trump had appealed to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court did not side with him. Now, four of the conservative justices did side with him. Justice Samuel Alito sided with President Trump. Justice Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh sided with President Trump. Justice Clarence Thomas, the great Justice Clarence Thomas, sided with President Trump. So 4 Supreme Court justices would have granted a stay, but that's a 4-5 split on the court. And the 5 went with allowing this kangaroo court to proceed. Now, the SCOTUS blog, Supreme Court of the United States blog, and Amy Howe writing, Supreme Court allows Trump's New York criminal sentencing to go forward. Again, President Trump and his attorneys challenging this whole kangaroo thing yesterday in the court. A divided Supreme Court on Thursday evening cleared the way for President-elect Donald Trump's criminal sentencing to go forward on Friday morning. In a brief, unsigned order issued after 7 p.m., that's beyond, that's after close of business, too, after 7 p.m., but it was just after 7 p.m. Still time to go home for dinner and stuff. The justices rejected Trump's plea to halt the sentencing proceedings in his New York hush money case, non-disclosure agreement case, where he was convicted on 34 counts of falsifying business records to hide reimbursements made to adult film star Stormy Daniels. Now, this is about whether the money involved in the non-disclosure agreement came from this pool of money or from that pool of money. And the Democrats put together a lynch mob. The Democrat Party has a long history of lynching people. They're the party of lynch mobs. Make no mistake. That's history. That's historical fact. And they got 12 New York jurors to convict him on 34 counts. 34 counts. You know, Sirhan, I'm betting, was not convicted on 34 counts. And the Democrat parole board in California granted Sirhan parole more than a year ago now. And Governor Gavin Newsom still hasn't signed the paperwork. But 4 of the court's conservative justices, Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, Neil Gorsuch, and Brett Kavanaugh, indicated that they would have granted Trump's request. Trump would have needed 5 votes to prevail, of course, because it's a 9-person court, which means that one of them doesn't know what a woman is. Well, at least one of them doesn't know what a woman is. And she's a woman. I can say that because I do know what a woman is, thankfully, which means that Chief Justice John Roberts and Justice Amy Coney Barrett joined the court's 3 liberal justices in voting to allow the sentencing to proceed. Now, one of the things about judges is that Democrat judges, Democrat nominees, Democrat appointees always vote with the Democrat Party. I prefer to be with the party and on the side where you cannot, because they're always political hacks, and they're chosen because they're political hacks. They're expected to be political hacks for the rest of their lives, even on the Supreme Court. And that includes, Jake LaMotta, who the Democrats have in the cut, and the Democrat justices always vote along party lines. The Republican nominees to the Supreme Court and beyond do not always consistently, reliably vote with the conservative lean. That just doesn't happen that way. John Roberts certainly proves that over and over again. Amy Coney Barrett is a justice of conscience, and I'm sure she could explain herself intelligently, and she knows what a woman is, an adult female human, just by the way. But never mind that. The trial judge in New York, Juan Merchan, has indicated that he does not intend to sentence Trump to jail time. Oh, that's big, yeah. And that's what happened this morning. And the SCOTUS blog yesterday with the decision, after the decision came out, 7 p.m.-ish last night. And I've got to say, while I wish that the court had sided with Trump, I assume that the conservative justices that voted with the liberal justices did so based on their legal reasoning and their conscience. And I'm not going to condemn them for it because they're Supreme Court justices and they get to rule the way that they determine to be appropriate. Now, the left-wing judges, justices in this case, and left-wing judges all over the country are always and consistently, reliably going with whatever the Democrat Party would want, because that's what they were hired to do. That's why they were picked, and the lefties always see it that way. You put a left-wing judge on the Supreme Court, that left-wing judge will always rule on behalf of the left wing of the Democrat Party. That's how that works. Conservative justices may go this way today and that way tomorrow because they're jurists, not ideologues. And so the split on the conservative side of the court, fine. But the lefties always, consistently, invariably. And I really want to see President Trump get another pick for the Supreme Court. I hope in the first year of his second term as president, I hope he gets, maybe Jake LaMotta will step down because of puffy face or something like that. Does any justice ever step down because of a puffy face? I don't think so. But remarkable stuff, I've got to say. And so now we have the ruling from Judge Juan Merchan, and you're guilty. And what will the punishment be for entering into a non-disclosure agreement, which the New York Times has entered into time and time again? Fascinating stuff, I've got to say. But I'll defend the conservative nominees to the court, and even John Roberts. John Roberts is consistently inconsistent, isn't he? So we've got all that going on. Remarkable stuff. Yes, but Thomas, Alito, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh indicated, because it wasn't an official trial, it was just taken to the Supreme Court, they would have granted the stay on this whole thing. All right, now let's see. Let's let's see, Anna. Let's go there. Let's go to William calling from Illinois. William, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Hey, Chris, long-time listener, first-time caller. How are you?
Very well, thank you, and welcome. I saw what's on the big board, and we were having the same discussion here, so I wanted to come to you, William.
Yeah, that last caller sounded an awful lot like Frank that's been calling in all the conservatives talk shows trying to debate and spread lies.
He did, and we were talking about that, and we saw him on the board, said George, and Michael Piercy said, before we even went to him, Michael Piercy said, do you think that's really Frank from Illinois, who we had on the other day? And then after he was on our show, he called into the Dan Bongino show, and he was on the Dan Bongino show. Frank from outside of Chicago, left wing hack, and and you're right. He was spreading misinformation and disinformation and claiming that things that are true, like there's no water in the fire hydrants, right? And well, that's misinformation. And the left is just like a gang of communist propagandists, aren't they, William?
Yes, they are. I'm willing to bet that his name isn't Frank or George. He's probably lying about that, too.
I had that. We were laughing about that after we hung up with him, William. And he's got 3 friends who are all Chicago firefighters, and they all left Chicago, and they all went to L.A., and they became firefighters in L.A., and he's spoken to all of them. It's quite amazing. And you're right, lefty propagandists. But now, hang in there, William, because just to respond to George or Frank, whoever it was, right, these seminar callers that they train up with left-wing talking points, and they call in and they lie and they propagandize and they spread misinformation and disinformation, and it's amazing stuff. But this is for George, coming out of Los Angeles, as to water out of the fire hydrants.
Well, firefighters have told me they have no water on this block, and you may be able to make out the ember storm that we're in the middle of right now. This house is going to be a total loss. They have no water to put on this fire.
That Fox 11 in Los Angeles, California, the nice lady reporter out there on the street with the embers swirling around her, and she's trying to stay alive, and the firefighters there telling her that they can't put the fire out because there's no water coming out of the hydrants.
NBC's Morgan Chesky witnessing it firsthand on the Eaton fire.
Out of every fire hydrant you've seen, what have you found?
Right now, we're finding most of them are down or low pressure.
Most of them are down, meaning no water coming out at all, or low pressure, which means you can't really blast things up to rooftops. And William, what is it with liberals? What happened to the Democrat Party? These people are... And I mean, honestly, they call into my show, and you're right, this guy then called into Dan Bongino's show, and I don't know, he may have called into other shows too, but he was Frank, and now he's calling back, and Frank is probably George today. What is up with them?
Yeah. They've gone off the rails. They're not on our side.
Yeah, that's a fact. They're not on our side, and they're not on the side of truth, justice, and the American way. You know, what is it, Marvel Comics that does Superman? And DC Comics, they do Superman.
DC.
And they got, thank you, and they did, you know, they've taken away Superman Comics as just truth, justice, and they've gotten rid of the American way. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
Isn't that appalling? That means there are Democrats there. It just means that there are Democrats there. And it's good that you can laugh about it, William. It really is, because you can't let it drive you mad. These people end up like Frank and like George. We had a big conversation yesterday in the studio. We had some clients, some advertisers, wonderful clients in the studio after the radio show yesterday. And we were talking about Mike the Lib. You know, Mike the Lib. We haven't heard from Mike the Lib lately.
I haven't heard from him in a while.
Yeah, not since the election, and we're concerned about his welfare. We had concerned listeners calling in just days ago saying maybe we should have the police go by his home and do a welfare check on him because we're concerned about Mike the Lib. We don't want him to self-immolate or anything, as so many Democrats are doing these days. But, you know, we did have another self-immolation at the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. Another Democrat.
Yeah. Yes.
Right, in the Tesla truck or whatever it's called. And, that's another self-immolation. And I saw a couple of news reports saying, oh, no, this guy's a Trump supporter. Yeah, which is why he rented an Elon Musk vehicle, went to a Trump hotel, and detonated a truck bomb filled with nail bombs at the Trump hotel. And then the media try to tell us, oh, no, he's a Trump guy, because the media are on the brink of self-immolating. In fact, they kind of have professionally and ethically self-immolated long ago. Amazing times, right, William?
That's correct. It's crazy, the world that we live in nowadays.
You know, but you tune in
Chris,
here.
I got to get to work.
Work. You got to pay your taxes because we got to send $50 billion to California because they're already in debt to the point where they can't. This is going to be a $50 billion fire. In fact, it'll probably end up being a lot more than that because that's the early estimate. And we've got now there are 10 confirmed dead, 10 human beings, 10 people confirmed dead. And the number will go up again. As I said yesterday, when the number was 5, I said the number will invariably go up because they haven't gone through all the houses and all of that stuff. And the number will rise. And then the money thing is going to come along. And, William, you working in Illinois, your tax dollars are going to go to California to bail them out because they've bankrupted themselves. And George, maybe Frank from Illinois, say, why do you politicize everything? Why do I politicize everything? The Democrat Party politicized grooming the forest. The Democrat Party politicized logging and clear-cutting forests. The Democrat Party politicized dams because the smelt fish are more important to them than human lives. The Democrat Party politicizes gender. In fact, I've got an update for you on that coming up, too, because the Biden administration took a big loss in the courts yesterday having to do with grooming kindergarten students for gender dysphoria. There's a big development on that. You know, Frank or George or whoever you are, I didn't politicize this. The Democrats politicized it. You politicized it. I didn't politicize gender. I didn't politicize the weather. I didn't politicize water retention, not for, teenage girls, but for the state of California. You guys politicized all of this, all right? Really. Don't kid yourself. Well, you can go ahead and kid yourself if you want, but schmuck boy, I'm telling you. Wah, wah, wah.
Why doesn't the government do something? That's what I'd like to know.
What can they do? They're only people just like us.
People my foot. They're Democrats.
Funny, I'm being texted by a friend of mine, old high school friend and beyond. Tom is texting me from Cocoa Beach. I like Cocoa Beach. Cocoa Beach, I Dream of Jeannie, all that Major Anthony Nelson. Said George, he's responding to George from Illinois, who might be Frank from Chicago, but George said we weren't prepared for hurricanes in Florida. Completely false. He's spreading more misinformation and disinformation. Says that there are no hydrants where water is not coming out, and he's lying about that. He's spreading misinformation and disinformation. And we played audio of the NBC fake news and the local Fox News channel in Los Angeles. No water coming out of the hydrants. But liberals live in a fantasy world, a demented, crazy fantasy world. But my friend Tom in Cocoa Beach said completely false. They had thousands, Governor DeSantis had thousands of line crews standing by before the hurricane even hit. They were in place everywhere. They were getting people off of islands that were going to be hit. They were they're prepared like nobody's business in the state of Florida. And Tom says, and everybody was here ready to respond. All these crews, thousands of them, standing by before the hurricane even hit. So they just lie about everything. Because, why is that, Michael? Because they're Democrats. And what does that mean? That means they're liars. It means they lie all the time because, of the mental issues. But I've got some good news. The Wall Street Journal. Now, if you live in Washington, D.C., or if you come to Washington, D.C. especially, but the Wall Street Journal headline, the Trumps are in talks to reclaim their prized D.C. hotel. Yay, yay. The Trump Hotel in Washington, D.C., which they gutted, this really wonderful 100-year-old giant post office that towers over the city, a great stone post office building, and they turned into the Trump Hotel, and the coolest hotel in Washington, D.C. Now, President Trump sold it, and it became a Waldorf hotel, like the Waldorf Astoria, right? A Waldorf hotel, and they are bankrupting it. So now President Trump and the Trump Real Estate Organization looking at taking the hotel back and making it great again.